Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today doing a Duston deck profile. So I'm really excited for you guys because this deck is actually suggested to me by one of my patrons, Tyler. And this deck is a really awesome OTK deck that revolves around summoning as many Dustons as possible to both yours and your opponent's field, and then summoning out our boss monster, Star Duston, to go in for the OTK. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards, like getting your name description in a single video, getting a signed cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month you're a patron. And definitely give Tyler some love down in the comments down below for suggesting such an awesome deck. So let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Star Duston, which is our awesome boss monster. This card has the ability to kind of be normal summoner set. It must be special summoned from your hand by sending any number of Duston monsters you control to the graveyard, and cannot be special summoned by other ways. And this card gains attack and defense times the number of Dustons that you send to the graveyard to summon out this card times 1,000, which is a really awesome effect, especially since we're usually sending 4 to 5 Dustons to summon out this card, meaning this card will come out at 4 to 5,000 attack points, which is absolutely insane. It also has the ability that your opponent cannot flip or special summon any monsters or activate any set spell or trap cards while this card's on the field. And if you control more monsters than your opponent does, destroy this card, which is a little bit of a downside, but usually we're comboing this card with our House Duston so that we can go in for the OTK. House Duston is probably the most important piece in this entire deck because it has the ability that when this face-up card on the field is destroyed by your opponent's card, you can special summon as many Dustons as possible to both players' field, but you have to summon the same number of Dustons to both yours and your opponent's field, which is a really awesome effect to be able to summon 4 to 5 Dustons to both players' fields to then summon out our copy of Star Duston to go in for the OTK, which is really insane. And comboed with a card like Final Attack Order is just absolutely crazy. We then play 3 copies of White Duston. White Duston is a really good 3-of in the deck because it just is another name that you can summon out to the field. We then play 2 copies of Blue Duston. Blue Duston is a really good 2-of in the deck, and the rest of the Dustons in this deck share a common effect that they cannot be used as a fusion, synchro, or Exi material for a summon, and while face-up on the field, they cannot be tributed, which is a really awesome thing to basically just give this card to your opponent that they can't really do anything with besides link summon and then go in for game. It also has the ability that when this card on the field is destroyed, banish 1 random card from the controller's hand face down until the standby phase of the next turn, which is a really good effect. We then play 2 copies of Yellow Duston. Yellow Duston is a really good 2-of in the deck because when this card on the field is destroyed, the controller targets 1 monster in their graveyard and shuffles it back into the deck, which is an awesome effect. We then play a single copy of Red Duston. Red Duston does 500 points of damage when it's destroyed to the player that controlled it, and then 1 copy of Green Duston. Green Duston is a really good 1-of in the deck as well, that when this card on the field is destroyed, the controller targets a spell or trap card that they control and return that target back to the hand. We then play 3 copies of Stygian Security. Stygian Security is a great 3-of in the deck just so that we can get to our copy of House Duston extremely quickly because it has the ability that if this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, then you get to special summon a level 1 Fiend monster from your deck, which is always going to be your copy of your House Duston. We then play 2 copies of Goblin King. Goblin King is a really good 2-of in the deck because this card has the ability, this card cannot be attacked if there's another Fiend type monster on the field, and the attack and defense of this card becomes the number of Fiend type monsters on the field excluding this card times 1,000, which is going to get absolutely massive when you put this card on the field after you've resolved your copy of House Duston. But that's a really awesome effect that this card cannot be attacked if there's another Fiend type monster on your side of the field, which is super good because you'll have a lot of protection with cards like your copy of Star Duston. We then play 3 copies of Gandarla. Gandarla is a really good kaiju just to give you a safe target to attack into with your copy of House Duston to be able to go in for all your Duston monsters. This card is a really awesome 3-of in the deck. I then play 2 copies of Gameciel. Gameciel is a really good 2-of as well in this deck because this card is basically just additional kaijus that you can basically have a safe target to attack into. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of 1-for-1. 1-for-1 is a really good 1-of in the deck that basically has the ability that you send a monster from your hand to the graveyard to special summon a level 1 monster from your hand or deck, which is always going to be your copy of House Duston you're summoning off this card, so that we can go in for our copy of Star Duston. We then play 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance. Pot of Extravagance is a really good 3-of in the deck because we don't summon from the extra deck all that much in this deck, so this card is a really good 3-of just to give us a draw too. I then play 3 copies of Where Art Thou. Where Art Thou is a searcher for pretty much every single level 1 in the deck, which makes it really good in the deck because if you control a face-up level 1 monster, you can add a level 1 monster from your deck to your hand, but during the end phase of this turn, you take 2,000 points of damage if you didn't normal summon the added monster, which is not that big of a deal because we're basically just using this card to search out our copy of either Star Duston or House Duston so that we can go in for the OTK. I then play 3 copies of Jack in the Hand. This card is a really good 3-of in the deck. This is just basically like additional copies of Where Art Thou that you reveal 3 level 1 monsters with different names from your deck. Your opponent adds 1 to their hand, you add 1 to your hand, and then you shuffle the 3rd back into the deck, which is a great effect to have on this card to basically give you a search of any combo piece that you're missing. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Battle Mania. This card is a great 3-of just to force your opponent to attack into your cards, because it has the ability to activate only during your opponent's standby phase, and all face-up monsters that your opponent control are changed to attack position and cannot change their battle position this turn, and all monsters that your opponent currently controls must attack this turn if able, which is a really good effect to be able to use just to make sure that you're going to go in for game and make your opponent attack into your copy of Star Duston or Goblin King. We then play 3 copies of Final Attack Order. This card is a really good 3 as well because all face-up monsters on the field are changed to attack position and their battle phase or their battle position cannot change, which is really cool for this card to be able to do because it makes all monsters go into attack mode so that you can go in for game, which is super good in this deck. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Assembled Nightingale. Assembled Nightingale is a really good 3-of in the deck that basically just helps you go in for your copy of Zeus, just in case you want to go for Zeus. So this card is a definite 3-of in the deck, and this card has the ability to gain 200 attack for each XZ material attached to it, and this card can attack directly, making it super easy to go in for Zeus during the main phase too, which is really nice for this card to have. We then play 3 copies of Downward Magician. Downward Magician is a really good card just to give your copy of Assembled Nightingale an additional material, because what you're going to do with this card is attack in directly with your copy of Assembled Nightingale into your opponent's life points, and then during main phase 2, go in for a copy of Downward Magician, which is super good in this deck, so that then you can go in for a copy of AA Zeus. AA Zeus is really good in this deck just to be able to board wipe the opponent. It's a really easy monster to summon because all you have to do is put 2 level 1 monsters on the field to make a copy of Assembled Nightingale, attack directly, make a copy of Downward Magician, and then make your copy of Zeus, which is really, really nice. I then play 2 copies of Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. Closed World is a really good 2 in the deck because it's super easy to put 4 monsters on our side of the field and put a monster on the opponent's side of the field, essentially turning it into a kaiju, which is really cool. This card is super good as well because it basically cold waves the field while it's on the field, which is super nice, and you can use 1 monster that your opponent controls as a link material to summon out this card, which is absolutely insane. We then play 2 copies of Relinquished Anima. Relinquished Anima is super good because this card basically has the ability that if it points to a monster, you can target that monster and equip to this card, and this card gains the attack of the monster equipped to this card, but you can only equip 1 monster to it, which is an awesome effect because this card can get absolutely massive depending on what your opponent has. A really cool combo in this deck is to be able to summon out this card to your field and then give your opponent a kaiju where this card points to be able to gobble up the kaiju monster, and if you have a second kaiju in the hand, you can just give them the other kaiju, which is really, really cool. We then play 2 copies of Linkuriboh to round out the extract. Linkuriboh is in the deck because just in case you need to protect yourself from attacks, this card is just a really good one-up to link summon during turn 1 so that you can protect yourself a little bit from getting OTK'd, which is really nice. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. This deck is super fun to be able to play. If you guys have never played with Duston before, you definitely should play with this deck because this deck is really, really fun. I'm glad that Tyler actually suggested this deck because it's absolutely insane and really fun to be able to play. And really fun about this deck is actually all of the Duston monsters have been printed as commons, which makes the deck super easy to pick up. So that's it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell next to become part of Notification Squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.